Dobry wieczór. Tutaj William. Witajcie na tygodniowym podsumowaniu Polski i Irlandzkiej wiadomości ze mną, Williamem Murphy. The main headlines this week have included Polish Deputy Prime Minister Jarosław Gowin resigns from the government in a dispute over the timing of the presidential election, but his Porozumienie party is to remain part of the ruling Zjednoczona Prawica ruling bloc, at least for now. The Sejm approves the controversial measure to proceed with the presidential vote, but delaying the first round to May 17th at the latest and holding it by postal ballot only. There is a huge impact in both Ireland and Poland on the economy and civil liberties of measures to combat the coronavirus pandemic, against which the battle continues. And Fianna, Fáil and Fine Gael move towards agreement on a framework document for government formation, pointing to a new administration after Easter. Starting with news from Poland. Jadwiga Emilewicz is a new Deputy Prime Minister, having been formally appointed to the role on Thursday by President Duda at the request of Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki. Emilewicz, who will continue to serve as Development Minister, was the choice for the post of Porozumienie or Agreement party leader Jarosław Gowin, who had earlier resigned from the government, where he had served as Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Science and Higher Education, in a dispute with his senior coalition partner Prawo i Sprawiedliwość over the decision to proceed with the holding of the presidential election in May. Opposition parties have called for the vote to be shelved for the present, while opinion polls point to a likely victory for the government-backed incumbent Andrzej Duda. Following Jarosław Gowin's resignation, the first attempt by the government to enact a law to allow for all postal voting was defeated in the Sejm, but had passed on the second attempt late on Monday with the support of most, though not all, Porozumienie members, at the urging of Gowin himself to support it. The vote was 230 in favour, with 226 against and 2 abstentions. Prawo i Sprawiedliwość had initially proposed postal voting only for older voters and those in quarantine or self-isolation, and Gowin may have been wrong-footed in his stance of highlighting the health dangers of the vote proceeding by Prawo i Sprawiedliwość moving to support all postal voting. The legislation now goes to the opposition-controlled Senate, where it will likely be rejected, before coming back to the Sejm in a month's time. There is speculation that could be the point at which Porozumienie exit the ruling Zjednoczona Prawica or United Right ruling bloc. They may be staying in government only long enough to enable passage of the emergency measures for the relief of the economy during the COVID-19 pandemic. Even with all three parties comprising the Zjednoczona Prawica, Prawo i Sprawiedliwość, Porozumienie and Zbigniew Solidarna Polska or Solidarity Poland, the government only has a narrow majority in the lower house, so any fracturing could lead to its collapse. That's a risk Prawo i Sprawiedliwość chairman Jarosław Kaczynski is likely to be acutely aware of though, and were Gowin to exit the ruling bloc entirely, it's speculated that many of his same members could remain with Prawo i Sprawiedliwość. Porozumienie has been known for some time to have been uncomfortable with a number of the government's policies, including the judicial reforms, on which there were further developments this week. On Wednesday, the European Court of Justice ordered Poland to immediately suspend the activities of the disciplinary chamber of the Supreme Court, which opponents of the government's judicial reforms claimed could be used to punish judges critical of the government. The ruling stated that Poland must immediately suspend the application of the national provisions on the powers of the disciplinary chamber of the Supreme Court with regard to disciplinary cases concerning judges, adding that Poland failed to fulfil its obligations under EU law by introducing the new disciplinary regime. In the early hours of Thursday, the Sejm approved government plans to aid the economy during the current crisis on a 233 to 183 vote with 37 abstentions. The new package, worth 11 billion zloty, had been unveiled by the government on Tuesday and is in addition to an earlier massive relief and stimulus package. Turning briefly to news from Ireland, where virtually all aspects of life continue to be dominated by the coronavirus pandemic and the health and economic response to it. Late on Tuesday, Health Minister Simon Harris signed into law new powers imposing drastic penalties for those breaching the draconian restrictions introduced on civil liberties on the justification of efforts to contain the spread of coronavirus. These include up to 6 months imprisonment and a fine of up to €2,500. The measures are designed to cover the Easter bank holiday weekend, but the expectation is that the general restrictions on economic and social activity will be extended beyond their original expiry date of Easter Sunday. Meantime, the human, economic and financial cost of the crisis continues to mount. My personal view of the current situation we find ourselves in is that it's extremely serious, and not just from the standpoint of the COVID-19 health emergency. We all extend our best wishes to those affected, and our thanks to the staff working on their care and on the maintenance of essential services. Reputable experts differ over the appropriate public health response to such pandemics. All loss of innocent human life is to be most deeply regretted. The fact is, though, that many years see deaths in addition to the norm from especially nasty viruses and other diseases. The question is whether closing down the world economy and destroying our civil liberties is a proportionate or rational response. Many of us wonder today how whole societies were duped, in addition to the coercion involved, into being active participants in regimes controlled by the totalitarian ideologies of fascism or communism. It's what ultimately happens when our individual liberty is destroyed. Today, we have many questions we should ask ourselves in this country, including why all organs of the state-funded media have become uncritical purveyors of official information and suspended their function of providing critical analysis. Do we really want a society in which a government minister, and in this case one in a government which doesn't even enjoy a democratic mandate from the last election, can stop citizens from going to work, going about their previously lawful business, or direct them to stay within 2 miles of their homes under pain of 6 months imprisonment? What we currently have is a case of the state taking over society. We should also be aware of what the long-term consequences will be once the immediate crisis is hopefully abated. What level of business activity will resume? Who will pay the huge bills the state is currently incurring in effectively closing or taking over much of the economy? And how quickly, or at all, will the state remove itself from the health institutions it's now taken over? Using the common good as an excuse for actions which would otherwise never see the light of day can, all too easily, lead us down the path to totalitarianism. I'm not just talking of the need for vigilance towards the actions of the state either. We must also be vigilant of those who newly assume a right to control the lives of their neighbours. We have made wonderful progress in recent decades in the cause of freedom, albeit not necessarily for all members of society in this country in recent years. We shouldn't allow the current crisis, whether exaggerated or not by the 24-hour news cycle and the handing over of policy decision-making to unelected officials, to reverse all that. I fear that, in the words of the retired UK Supreme Court Judge Lord Sumption, speaking of events in that country, that what we're experiencing now is a national state of collective hysteria due to an exaggerated threat, and that the cure is worse than the disease. I said a few weeks ago I hoped we'd soon see better days. I hope that all the more fervently today. Against the background of the decisions required as to when and how to lift the restrictions currently in place and to aid the revival of the economy, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have continued to progress their negotiations on the formation of a new government, which looks likely to take shape shortly after Easter. Currently, the expectation must be that it will be assisted into office by a grouping of independents of the rural and or ex-Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael variety, rather than one or more of the Greens, Labour or Social Democrats. Tavshesku na Chinchijin. Zapraszam na kolejne podsumowanie Chinchijin o te same proże. Wszystkim słuchaczom życzymy wesołych świąt wielkanocnych. Dobranoc.